On today's episode of Melanated Conversations, we amplify the voice of Terri Lomax. Terri Lomax is a globally recognized podcaster, speaker, and brand strategist. She is the founder and visionary for the Mocha Girls Pit Stop blog and co-founder of the Her Space podcast. Her lifelong desire to help others overcome adversity was birthed from a place of hurt and pain. As a child, her resilience enabled her to overcome physical and verbal abuse and defy statistics about children with incarcerated parents. Listen in as Terri shares her personal story of triumph over tragedy, how to overcome life's obstacles while embracing a spirit of resilience, and the inspiration behind her new book, How to Glow Up as You Grow Up, your go-to guide for overcoming obstacles and making lemonade.
Welcome to Melanated Conversations, our narrative from our perspective.
Here on the podcast, we are amplifying the voices of Black women and sharing their powerful stories of transformation.
I'm Terri.
And I'm Yana. Let's start the show. Welcome back to another episode of Melanated Conversations. I am your co-host, Yana.
Yes, and I am your co-host, Terri.
Welcome back, y'all.
This is exciting.
Yes.
I mean, we're always excited to get back on the mic and chop it up with friends, new friends. So
yes, absolutely. And we're excited because we have a very special guest. Well, of course, all of our guests are special, but we have a really special guest that we're bringing on today that's going to share with us and share her story. And we want to welcome you to her. So welcome to Terri Lomax. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we're so excited to chat all the things with you and just hear all the things that you have going on. And the fact that you're a fellow podcaster too. Y'all have a popping podcast. We're actually going to talk about that later. But before we actually get into all of that, we like to do this thing that we call rapid fire questions. Pew, pew, pew. Brought them back. And we wanted to see if you were open to kind of play with us for a second before we go into our questions today.
Girl, I am open. I will say I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so I feel like I'm going to try my best to answer the question. And later I'll be like, wait, I really should have said this, but I'm down. Let's do it. Let's do it.
You sound like me. Okay.
Girl. Well, okay.
Well, Terri, this small little segment is meant to be more lighthearted and fun and whatnot. So you can let your guard down with us just a little bit. We're not going to dig into your life too much. But so our first question, what's the best thing that has happened to you this month? We know 2020 has been crazy. And, a lot of times we can look at life from the, what do people say, the glass half empty.
Or half empty.
Half empty or half full. So let's, I would just love to hear what's something good that has happened to you.
You know what? The first thing that came to mind for me was my co-host and I moving into season 7 of our podcast. And that was just such a milestone for us. And it feels like there's just this new portal to endless possibilities and great content. So we're really excited about that. So that's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Season 7.
You're trying to get where you are.
She said 7.
Yeah. We're country. Sorry about that.
I love it.
Yana, what about you?
What was the question?
What's the best thing that has happened to you this month?
Oh, yeah, this month. Okay. Like you said, we're still early in the month. There's a lot of things, but I would say getting that negative COVID-19 test. I'm not going to hold you. That was,
amen.
Yes, that was, because we had a little scare and we thought, we actually found out that there was a potential party that tested. So the fact that we tested negative was like I'm gonna just go with that. I can breathe a little bit. So
okay,
we will take that negative COVID test for sure.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
For me, it's not necessarily that it happened initially in July, but I'm starting to see fruits of this kind of happening in July. But we just released maybe 2 weeks ago. It's almost 2 weeks ago, or about a week ago, my own personal episode. And I got to share some really intimate stuff about myself and share some stuff with our audience. And it's just been really cool to see like some of the feedback that I'm getting. And it's just really cool. It's been a blessing. And so far, I'm not mad at July. I mean, there are things that I am upset about with July. July got some stuff going on, but that's something that's been really great and awesome and cool. So yeah, that's what I got.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was yeah, you're right. That was a major step for you. And I'm glad that you took that step. So I'm proud of you. I don't know if you know this, Terri. I'm sorry. We're probably being poor hosts, but a little background on Terri and I don't know if you know, but we're first cousins. So my mother and her father are brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
Get out. That is so cool. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love it. The family affair.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes. Last question. Well, we'll throw out one more question for our rapid fire, if you're okay with that. And then we'll go straight into our talk with you.
Yes.
So I want to know, what is one thing that you still have or maybe still, carry from you? It can be physical or just something. It doesn't have to be anything tangible. What's something that you still have from your childhood?
Okay, the first thing that came to mind, this is rapid fire, so I'm just going to say the first thing that came to mind. So when I was younger, I was a very clumsy child. And so I used to always just fall and bust my knees. And it was so bad. And get those little strawberries. And so I was riding a bike one day and I ran into the back of a truck. Don't ask me how it happened. I don't understand. I don't know. And I have this little scar that's like up on my top thigh area that just never went away. And so that's the first thing that came to me when you asked that question.
Oh.
Nice. I love the fact that she actually played it right. She like first thing that came to mind. You're probably one of the first people that have done that.
Really, it's so random. I was like, let me just share this. It came to mind.
No, I love that. And like you said, Terri, I like how she spanned that question because I wouldn't have. Now I'm thinking like, oh.
Right. Like a little deeper. I don't know.
All right. I'll let you go, Terri, and then I'll give mine.
Oh, okay. All right. So one of the things that I still have from my childhood is, Yana, when I used to come and visit during the summer for holidays, I always kept I had this little koala bear and this little, like my baby pillow that I took it everywhere. It didn't matter where I went. I had to have it. And if I left it at home, somebody was going back to get it because I had to have it while I was asleep. So anyway, to this day, now I think the pillow is back at my grandmother's house, but I still have the koala bear here at my house now. Whole grown woman with kids, been married almost 11 years and got a little koala bear that I used to sleep with.
Is there significant? Because there's a reason that you held to it, right?
You know what? Honestly, there's really not. I do know that my uncle gave me the koala bear. He was stationed in the Navy and he went to Australia for a little bit and he brought that back. And that was just something that I always kind of carried. And I think the baby pillow may have been just from birth that my mom had given me. And so, yeah, definitely always kept that with me. Would always just kind of like, like a lovey, sniff it, or rub it against my face, weird stuff. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I've still got hanging around here. What about you, Yana?
That's so cute.
Well, the first thing I thought about is I actually went, I can't remember, it was one of my trips back home, and I was going just through my closet. I just kept all different kind of books and writings and different things there, and I stumbled across this big like envelope and Trapper Keeper, if y'all remember what those were, just like binder full of writings. I used to write a lot. Well, I still do. But I wrote as a kid, I used to write a lot of poems and songs and letters to myself. And I stumbled across that and I brought it home. So I have like a whole like little, I'm kind of want to make a scrapbook of it, of just like all my poems and songwritings and things of that nature. So that's what I have.
I love it.
We'd love to see. Yes, ma'am. Yes. I love it. Come on, writer. Well, Terri, thank you for playing rapid fire with us. That was so much fun.
Yes.
But we know we're not here to just play the whole time, although we could. But we're definitely here to hear your story and have you share with us and our listeners about the wonderful things that you've got going on. And so let's get into this conversation. All right.
Let's do it. Let's
So
do it.
my first question for you is, can you tell us and our listeners just a little bit about your origin story, your roots? Where are you from? Who is Terri Lomax?
Yes, yes. So I am originally from Philadelphia, 215 in the house. And I was born in Philly, but I was raised in San Diego for about 10 years of my life. So I really claim both cities just because, I mean, those 10 years from about 2 until I was 12 in San Diego, that was very instrumental in, who I became and who I am today. So yeah, Philly and San Diego. And I've kind of moved all over the course of my life and career. So I lived in Maryland, I lived in Queens, New York City, I lived in Florida for a little bit, and now I live in San Francisco. So I've kind of been all over the country.
Nice. San Fran is a nice city, a very nice city. I visited about 2 years ago, and I was not pleasantly surprised, but I was like, oh, this is like a really cool city. Like it was just a cool city.
Yeah.
So cool.
Weather,
Awesome.
right? The weather is so beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And then of course we got to go out to wine country and enjoy some of that too. So that was nice. We got a nice little feel of the city. So that's dope. That's cool. You've been all around.
What was the restaurant y'all went to? Because y'all got a book. It was like
Oh,
Flower
yeah.
and Water or something. The book was called Flower and Water, but I don't know if that's the restaurant. But
So it was like a pop-up restaurant, Flower and Water. So and it has a cookbook. The chef has a cookbook, but we went for the weekend, my husband and I, for our anniversary a few years ago, and just went to this little pop-up restaurant that they did, and it was really cool. And so yeah,
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not sure if it's still there or if it was just like a pop-up thing or if but definitely Flower and Water, very, very cool restaurant and experience.
Yes, I'm gonna have to look that up. I may have to visit.
For sure.
So Terri, a little bit more kind of about your story. Just thinking about your roots. Are you your only child or?
Oh, yeah. So you know what? I actually have 7 siblings. I have a beautiful blended family, but I come from one of those families where it's like we were raised together, and so we're brother and sister. We don't do the halves and steps and all that. So I have 7 siblings. And you know what? So a couple years ago, so on Solange's birthday, she had posted this beautiful sort of this birthday post, and it was like a chronological post about different milestones in her life. And so when I think about the question you asked about, origin story, I would love to just share a few of those points from my life, because I ended up doing one for my birthday. And I was like, this is a really great way to just give you like a high level overview of someone's story, right? So you could even do this for yourself, right? Just kind of look at your life timeline. Yeah. And so when I look back on this overview, I see very clearly that, man, I came into this world with adversity. Like the struggle was real for a long time. And so as an infant, I had meningitis and I almost died from it. I remember my mom and grandparents told me about how I was an infant. I stopped breathing. They had to rush me to the hospital and they didn't think I was going to make it. And at 1 year old, I met my father for the first time. At 4 years old, I recall, and it's crazy, I actually remember this point. I was molested. At 6 years old, I remember feeling God and just feeling really connected to some type of source. It was just wild. When I think back to it, I just remember feeling super connected and feeling safe and feeling like someone was watching me and someone was there with me. And at 7, I remember visiting my mom in prison for the first time. And then at 8 years old, I remember becoming a big sister twice in the same year. My dad had a child with his girlfriend at the time, and then my mom and her husband had their first child. And then kind of moving along the story, when I was about from 12 to 16, I struggled with depression and anxiety and low self-esteem. And I struggled with that in silence. Not a lot of people knew, and it was just something I kind of held close to myself. And then I'll stop at 17. That was a really pivotal moment in my life where one of the most prominent male figures, my dad, passed away a month before I went away to college. And so that's kind of the high level to kind of bring us up to speed.
No, thank you for that. I love how you just kind of, you said, you chronicleize your life moments. And I'm going to take that and do that on my own. But
yes,
yeah, and that even in each of those, and we're actually going to touch on a little bit of those pieces of your story, but just how you summarized it. Did you have something, Terri?
No, I'll save it.
Kind of, since we're on a topic of thinking about your story and its fullness, I know that July 21st, that's a prominent date that holds significant space in your life and kind of has been very vital into the story of the transformation that you've, progressed through over time. Can you tell us a little bit about the significance of that date in your life?
Yes, for sure. I'm so happy you asked that question because it's so special to me. And so July 21st, it started off as a very devastating, depressing, and sad day. And that was the day that my dad passed away in our hotel room on a family vacation. My family, we had driven down, my 4 younger siblings, my mom and my dad, we all drove down to, we were going from Philly to Virginia. And they were actually taking me on a missions trip that I was going to with my church. And so this was like a moment that we had all been waiting for. We were super excited. And y'all, when I look back on it, I'm just like, this is so bizarre to think it's like just freak accident situation. That's kind of what it reminds me of. And the fact that who would think that when you're on your way to, this missions trip to help people out and stuff like that, this would happen. And so my dad passed away in the hotel room on that day. And again, it was devastating for the family. My younger siblings and my mom were there and basically watched it happen. And I ended up finding out later he died from a blood clot in his leg that rushed up to his heart. So it was very unexpected, very out of the blue for us. And just really, really just traumatizing. I didn't know how I was going to go to college or really just succeed in life because my dad was really that stable person. He was that adult that held us down. He was the sole provider, and he was the one that was constant in our lives when my mom was back and forth to jail. So after that happened, it took me a few years to really heal and get over the bitterness that I had because I was so angry with God. I just couldn't understand, how could this happen? I was trying to, be a good girl and be on the right track. And I was really into church. And I was just so confused as to how something like that could happen. And when I finally did figure out how to heal and cope, and when I want to say make lemonade from that, I ended up, my husband's so awesome. We got married on a Tuesday. It was July 21st, hold up, y'all. Don't get me lying. July 21st, 2015, when we got married. And so we repurposed that day and made it a day of celebration, celebrating love and celebrating legacy. And so that was really great to do that. But then I decided to also launch my book on July 21st, 2020 to really give that day another meaning. And I'll come full circle because I know this story, it's so bizarre to me. But full circle, I ended up ordering my birth certificate. And I've been really getting into astrology and understanding my sign and my rising sign. And everyone kept telling me you need to learn your birth time in order for you to really get a birth chart reading. That's the only way that it can be really as accurate as possible. So I was like, okay, let me go ahead and order a birth certificate. So I ordered my birth certificate. I was waiting for it to come. It finally came in the mail. My husband's like, here, your envelope came. I was like, yes, I was so excited. Mm-hmm. Girl, I opened this envelope and you will not believe what time I was born, y'all.
7/21?
7/21, girl. Girl, when I opened that birth certificate, is the long form. My husband was probably like, what's wrong with my wife? I screamed and I literally ran back and forth through the house. I was like, oh my gosh, all this time, 7/21 was such a special number for me. And I didn't understand it. But for me, that was like a full circle moment. And I'm like, wow. So yes, 7/21 is my number.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Yeah, there's so much that I could touch on that. I won't for the sake of, I know with time, because I'm one that really follows numbers hold significance to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested just to see what kind of what meaning 721, because I'm sure it may, if you look at the full scopeness, it probably brings a lot to your personality and who you are. So yeah, that is so dope.
That is wow.
I'm like, I can't even make this stuff up. At this point, I'm like, okay, it's all being orchestrated.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call that. You kept saying it was bizarre. I wouldn't even call that bizarre. That's definitely some orchestrated,
That was divinely.
stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So by the time this episode airs, your book will be released. And the name of your book is How to Glow Up as You Grow Up. And I just want to say that you sent us a copy, a digital copy, and we got to kind of read through some of this. And I'm not going to hold you, Terri. I was drawn in. I don't want to give stuff away because we want our listeners to go support. But I mean, from the very beginning, from that first page, you kind of touched on this when you were talking about your origin, your roots, but you kind of lay out that timeline of your life. And I was like, okay, I've never seen this done in a book before, where someone is sharing about their life, which I thought was super cool. And then, okay, well, let me just ask you this before I talk more. And like I said, I don't want to say too much, but can you just tell us about the messages that you're emphasizing within the book and your journey as far as writing your story? How did that come about? And then we can talk a little bit more details.
For sure. So I do want to say, so the tagline of the book is your go-to guide for overcoming obstacles and making lemonade. And for me, the reason I wanted to write this book right now is because I think oftentimes, we hear that quote, right? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And I'm the kind of person where I need to know the how. Like, I'm like, okay, that's cool. But how are we making lemonade? Like, what are the ingredients? What are we doing? Like, what's happening? And so I really wanted this book to be the how. Like, I wanted this to be a step-by-step. It's more like a workbook, right? Where I'm showing the reader through my struggles and my stories and even success, like how I was able to really make lemonade and then offer the reader an opportunity to look at their story and understand, okay, this happened to me. This is how I'm going to, this is how my perspective may have shifted. And this is what I'm going to do to make lemonade for myself. And so I think for me, that is just so important. The other thing I wanted to point out, and the reason why I sort of went through that story timeline, is because I know that a lot of other folks, whether they share it or not, they have some similarities. Like they've been abused, they've been molested, right? They may have had this traumatic upbringing, and I want to take them to the other side and show them that didn't define me, right? Like that didn't determine how far I could go. And I think the big message that I want folks to walk away with when reading the book is, it's not about me being special or me being great. I had a friend that previewed the book and she's like, yeah, this is really inspiring, but you're like an anomaly. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm not. Like, we all have that same drive and that same resilience within us. It's a matter of us deciding, how do we want to show up in the world? And based on what happened to me, what am I going to do about that? And Lisa Nichols, one of my favorite motivational speakers, she has a quote she had stated in an interview, and I was just like, oh, mind blown. And Lisa Nichols said, don't make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook. Oftentimes we see someone that we admire, we put them on a pedestal, and we're like, oh my gosh, you're so awesome. I could never do that. But it's like, don't be trying to let yourself off the hook. You have greatness within you, right? You have a story too, and you can achieve your wildest dreams as well. Like other people who have made it and other people who are successful or other people you look up to, they don't possess something you don't possess, right? And so I think that's the big message behind it.
I love that. There are so many moments and tidbits in your book. First of all, even visually, I thought was very intriguing and like inviting, and made it even more exciting to read the content within. But I think you talk about your relationship with your mother and having to make some of these hard choices. Like I said, I don't want to give anything away, but just, surrounding the sudden passing of your father and just realizations that you had afterwards. And I will say you were one brave sister for sure, for some of the choices that you had to make. Very inspiring. So I applaud you 100%. But you even talk about like the process of forgiveness. And for me, that resonates with me. Ironically, I've lost a parent. I lost a parent when I was very young. And and then had to deal with, on the other side of that, going through some things in life to where I had to learn how to forgive. And you talk about the importance of like, not forgiveness is never about really about the other person. It's really for you. Because sometimes you can get stuck in a rut and in this jail cell, this prison, so to speak, to where you can't even move forward in life because you're stuck holding on to this bitterness, right? That won't allow you to grow and to move. So I just love all those things. And then you had even share part of a letter or some words that you expressed to your mother. And I was just like, woo, blown completely back by that. But I just want to say that I'm so excited for our readers to get their hands on your work. And it is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. So that's my thoughts on everything.
Thank you so much, lady. That means so much because writing a book, sometimes you're like in this little corner of the world by yourself, just like fleshing out all of your emotions and journal entries. And so to hear feedback from folks that have, previewed and read it, it's just like, okay, so something resonates, right? So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes. And I'll add too, because even just, seeing how your approach on like social media and how you use that platform too. I love that you're so open and transparent about your life experiences. Seeing you normalize healing through your storytelling is really refreshing. You have no idea. I resonated strongly, how Terri had mentioned like her, attraction to the piece as it relates to, losing a parent and kind of that story of forgiveness. But I resonated strongly with your recent message that you did on, I think you did like an IG live when you talked about suicide, mental health and racial trauma, and how even through your current success, you find you're not immune to the pain often felt through these experiences. Just for you, like, why is it so important for you to share these vulnerable experiences and life-altering moments with your followers?
Yes. You know what? I think this came from an epiphany and sort of a perspective that I became aware of at a young age. I was one of those kids where I was very much, I would say my teenage years is what I remember. I was very much in tune with like this bigger picture and this purpose. And I remember reading The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren when I was like early teens, like asking questions like, why am I here? What is my purpose? And like thinking about this deeply, like I need to be doing something in the world. And so I feel like with that in mind, and then also having this very, I want to say, interesting relationship with death, because I remember going to a funeral for the first time when I was younger. And I remember going to a child funeral. It was a childhood friend who had passed away. And I remember just being so interested and so intrigued, but also kind of scared about like what happens when we die, and just understanding that this is something that is inevitable, like it's going to happen to us all. And so for me, I want to bring about as much change as possible, spark as much conversation around these topics as possible, and also just normalize the things that many of us go through. Because I know for me, when I started my blog about 8 years ago, I was in a place where I had followed the well-intentioned advice of my mentors, advisors, and school counselors, right? I went to school, I got good grades, I got a good job, but I still felt empty. And I realized that even when I was in grad school, I was in a place where I was still very much struggling with the symptoms from my childhood, from being abused. So the depression, the low self-esteem, and people would see me from the outside and think, oh, she's in grad school, she's moved away, she has her car, she has this, and life looks lit on social media. But I'm like, I'm struggling in real life. And so I didn't see people that look like me that were talking about that stuff, that were like real, like, girl, today I looked in the mirror and I just hated what I saw, like the real stuff that I felt. And I wanted to open up a conversation and open the door to have those conversations in a safe space. So that's always so important to me, because I think that sometimes there's this misconception that we arrive in this life. And it's like, no, we don't ever arrive. We're constantly growing. We're constantly evolving. And I think I would love for more people to share that so we can all connect on that human level.
Yeah, I just want to say something you just said that kind of stuck out to me when you were talking about death and how you kind of have a thing about death, which I've heard you speak about before. But you said something interesting that I think sometimes people don't necessarily think of in that way. But the question was, what happens after you die? And a lot of times, I think the majority of people typically are consumed with how they're going to die, opposed
Yeah.
to what happens after you die. And I thought that was just kind of like, I picked up on that. And the fact that you had even thought about that, as a child, as being young, you know, like that was a thought that came through your mind. So I just thought that was interesting. That's all I want to say about that.
Man, there's so much there. Oh gosh. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So I'm going to segue just a little bit because this is still part of, you know, of how you got to where you are. I know you started out kind of, I want to say journaling a little bit through your story, through the Mocha Girls Pit Stop blog that you created. And then, you know, you now, like we mentioned earlier in the show, you guys, if you don't know Terri, y'all should probably know Terri's voice because they have man, they have she and her co-host Dr. Dom. They co-host the Her Space podcast. You know, check it out if you haven't already. I'm sure you have. Again, they're in season 7, so there's plenty of content out there for y'all. But it's so interesting, even when I kind of looked into like that backstory and how you guys initially met from a conference that you're a speaker, and how you know, that kind of transformed into this relationship, and y'all creating, you know, this amazing podcast that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about how, you know, you guys how you came into alignment for your show and why you wanted to start the show that you have?
Yes, and I'm like all smiles right now. Thank you so much. That podcast, I mean, that is our baby for sure. And honestly, you know, at this point, I think that I always say that nothing ceases to amaze me, but I feel like I'm still just amazed when I look back. You know, they say hindsight is 20/20, and to look back to see how we met and how this formed and where the podcast is, my mind is just constantly blown. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did that even happen? And so, like you said, we met at a conference. We decided, you know, we just clicked and we were like, hey, let's chat. Let's just get dinner and just chat because we're both Black women. We want to do something for Black women. So boom. And it took us about 6 months, I think, to actually get to a meeting. And we finally met and had dinner. And it was kind of like one of those, we often compare our relationship to like a parent relationship with this child that we have, which is the podcast. And so it kind of felt like a date where we were just like straight to the point, like, you know, what are your intentions? You know, you go on a date or you might chat with somebody like, okay, I'm trying to get married. Are you trying to get married? Let's make this work. What are we going to do? Well, I felt like we were both like, you know what? We both want to do something for Black women. So what is this going to look like? And so we got down to like the nitty gritty stuff of like, what's your personality like? What are your strengths? So we could figure out, okay, if these are like my strengths tend to be the techie stuff. Dom is more of the, you know, psychologist, the therapy. She comes in with like the stats and all that. And sometimes I bring the, you know, the ratchet, silly side with a little bit of storytelling and all that. And so we really mesh well. So we really got clear on like, what are our strengths? What are our areas for improvement? What are your pet peeves to kind of see like, okay, are we going to be a good match or will we irritate one another all the time? So after we got through all that, we were like, you know what? This is really cool. What if we started a podcast or something? And girl, we literally didn't know what we were doing. It was so scary because people kept telling me I should start a podcast, but I was like, I already have a blog and I work full time and I do this. I don't have time. And so we agreed upon it. We prepared content months in advance. And then we launched on January 1st of 2019, I think it was. At this point, y'all, I'm so confused with all the days. It was January 21st, a couple years ago. And so that's kind of how the story started and how it happened.
Yo.
Oh my gosh.
If you could see Terri and I's
faces right now,
just you walking us through kind of like the whole process. I promise you, it is so crazy how y'all are like the mirror images of us.
Legit.
I see so much of myself, Dr. Dom, and Terri is like Terri and Terri. That's crazy.
Oh, twin. Okay, twin.
Like real talk. I told Yana, I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you finish, Yana. But I told Yana, I said I was listening to your podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, like they're us. I was like, I said, Terri sounds like me. Like I felt like I was listening to myself, literally, like voice. I felt like I was listening to myself when I heard you talk. Like, yeah, what do you call the mind blowing emojis are like
yes
loading in this room right now. Okay.
Even the messages and the core mission, like it is so to the T and identical. It is so crazy. I'm like, it's like we see ourselves, the further ahead version of ourselves.
Yes.
But even when I listen to like y'all's intro episode, it literally kind of sounds like our intro episode. And I promise you, we were not biting. We had we had never like. I have no words, but I love the fact that, her means healing, empowerment, resilience, and how you stand for, kind of, like I said, identical to what our show is about. We want to see more Black women share their stories, and we want to be seen in a more positive, uplifting way, take back control of our narrative, and it's just, you don't understand. It was so refreshing when Terri and I, and we actually listen and, tune into the episodes on our own time. So we didn't even do this together.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, she is me and I am her. We are one.
We are one.
Yes.
Come on, Franklin Beverly.
Well, and I think here's the other thing. It's a beautiful thing, and it is nothing but love. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Love, because we are inspired by y'all. We love what y'all are doing, and we are all on the same mission. We are all on the same mission, and the more, I think, the better. Like, we gonna knock this thing out the park.
Okay. Yes, there's room for everybody. That's so important. I'm glad you said that, because I feel like I was interviewing with someone this week, and they were saying how what she said. She said something like, when she first got started, she was like, well, they already have enough of these out there. But I feel like we all have a certain swag and secret sauce. And there are people that, like Yana and Terri, that you two, they need to hear a message from you. Like, you are going to share a message, and it's going to click for them because it's coming from you, your voice, your vibe, your energy. There are going to be people that hear a message from me and Dr. Dom, and sometimes they need to hear Dr. Dom say something, and they may not resonate if it comes from me. So I feel like, yes, there are so many people in this world. We can all be out there sharing our stories and messages. Absolutely.
That's right.
I love that you said that. I remember my best friend told me, because kind of the same way when we were starting our podcast, we did the same thing. We were kind of pulling out like what topics we want to talk about and different things.
Strengths and weaknesses, all of it. Yeah.
But at one point, I'm not going to lie, I was like, what is going to stand out for us? What makes us unique? What makes us different? And honestly, my friend had to sit me down and be like, quit worrying about that. Your message, it has to get out there. It doesn't matter if it's the same message is being delivered from you. She's like, if you walk down the potato chip aisle, how many rows of chips and variety of chips are you going to see? Thanks. You see so many, there's room for all those chips in that one space.
Come
so
on.
why do you think it's enough room for you to share your voice out here? The whole mission and purpose of your show is because we lack in this space. There's not enough of us. So I feel like we need to see and encourage more of us to go out there. It doesn't have to be starting a podcast, but whatever it is that, is you're called to do we need to make more room for us. And I love just to close that little part up. I just love how you and Dr. Dom are creating safe space for real experiences for us as Black women. And, we applaud y'all. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Rounds of applauses. Can you just share with us briefly, like what's some lessons that have presented themselves through hosting your show? I know you both come from different backgrounds, and sort of like Yana and I, we literally knew nothing about this podcasting game whatsoever.
Yeah.
So can you just share some things that have been lessons for you guys?
Let me see. I think one lesson for me, like being a person that is very much, if you can't guess already, very much type A personality. I'm the kind of person where like, I don't know how to sit my behind still. And so being a type A personality, someone that's like always on the go, for me, sometimes going with the flow tends to be, it was a challenge. And so I think for us, one of the lessons we've learned is to, yes, we can map out content. Yes, we can have an agenda. But if we sit down and we're ready to hit record and it's just not in our spirit and we're feeling that there's something else pulling at us, go with the flow. Like, listen to your body, listen to your intuition, be in tune enough. Because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of the episodes that we've shared, it was stuff that we didn't really plan in advance. And we kind of just sat down and we're like, where's your energy at? What's flowing right now? Like, what's coming up for you? And we also try not to, in my research and preparation, I'll listen to other podcasts, but I try not to listen to other content too much because I don't want it to influence like where we're going, right? I really want it to be as authentic as possible, as creative as possible, and just kind of keep this open mind. So I would say that's a lesson. I would also say, like, the show must go on. There have been so many technological issues. I mean, I remember we've been traveling and I was in like Philly one time recording in a hotel room and, traveling for, I think it was like my grandmother's funeral. And then Dawn was out here working and then she was traveling, visiting family, like in Arizona, and I was in New York, and we make it work. So just adjusting, learning how to pivot and just believing that anything is possible, because sometimes I've had people reach out like, can I have a podcast if we live in different cities or states or areas? And I'm like, absolutely. Like, whatever you believe you can make possible is possible. So we just keep on trying, y'all.
We love it.
Love it. That's all it takes. As long I feel like just having the willingness to do it and just starting with that. I know that's so simple and we hear it all the time, just starting.
Yes.
It's like, but honestly, that is your biggest hurdle is starting.
Yeah.
Because so many things, so many lanes, so many things that we didn't even think about will happen and open up, and doors that will open up for us with starting our show. Just by us starting and just making the moves and learning on the way, as you know, it's just opened up so much. So yes, just keep walking into that. Kind of wrapping up our discussion before we go into our closing questions, I do want to quickly touch on, you are just so multifaceted and multi-talented, and that has transcended in so many ways for you. And in addition to your podcast and the book that you're writing and the speaking and things that you do with your brand, you've also created this amazing lane for yourself in the tech space. Can you tell us just a little bit about that and kind of offer just a little, what advice would you provide for someone that would like to kind of move into this area of tech?
Yes. So about 5 years ago, my husband and I moved to the Bay Area. We moved to Silicon Valley, and it was so challenging to get work here. I mean, I learned very quickly that you need to know somebody, to know somebody, to know somebody in order to get a job, it seems like, especially if you're a Black woman. That's just my experience. And so, y'all, left and right, I was applying for jobs and I knew I could do the work because I was like, I have my own side hustle. Like, if you go to terrilomax.com, I have courses about, building your social media following, building your brand, podcasting and all that. And I was doing all this work on the side and people were just not seeing me. They were sleeping on me heavy, y'all. And I was getting rejection left and right. And so one, I think building your transferable skills, especially in the world we're in now, I mean, you can literally go online today and take a course and you can build up your own brand. Like, that is what people are doing. And that's what I did. And so after being persistent and continuing to apply for jobs and go to networking events, I finally got a call from a company that I applied to like months before. And the company is called Asana, which is a project management tool. And so they called me and they were offering me a role, and it was an entry-level role at the time. And I was like, you know what, even though I have a master's degree, like, I'm going to put my, humility on, I'm going to wear my humility like a badge, and I'm going to take this entry-level role, even though other people might see it and say, oh, well, I'm overqualified, or I could do this and that. I was like, yo, a foot in the door is better than being outside the door. Okay. So I took that role and I was like, I'm going to work my way up and I'm going to build great relationships with people. I'm going to give this job my all so that I can work my way up. So a couple years later, after being in that entry-level role, I worked my way up into a few other roles. And now I'm the company's very first customer success manager for our global team. And so for me, it was all about building relationships, networking. It was all about just putting your good foot forward and just giving your best at the job. So I was crushing it when I was in an entry-level role, the same way that I'm, crushing it in the next role. So I think just being committed to that, that was really key for me. And then also networking. Networking is so important.
Yes, no, I love that. And thank you for that advice and I love the fact that you talk about how even knowing where you wanted to be and knowing your qualifications and the things that you brought to the table, sometimes you do have to like put your humility hat on or wear that badge, and knowing that you will get where you are supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. I think that is just really cool, and that you're so determined. And by the way, you don't mind me saying, well, correct me if I'm wrong. You're 29. Are you 29?
I'm 30, so I'll be 31 in November. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very young still. And out here like changing the game and trailblazing and doing all of these wonderful things. I love seeing Black women win. Yes, that's it.
Thank you, girl.
Man, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Yana, did you have something you wanted to say today?
No, you touched on it. Man, just kudos to you, and just stick with that. As you know, there's so much left for you, and I just see so much for you, and just continue walking that path. Man, I can't wait to see how things continuously unfold for you. So, and I just can't wait to get my hands on your book. So, as we wrap up for today, just kind of one closing question. Every guest that we bring on, we always ask them what word is guiding them through the year. We know 2020 has been kind of a different year for us, but what, if you could think of one word, what is your power word for 2020?
You know what? And I hope you don't judge me for this. So the word that I have is actually a screensaver on my phone that I changed. I think it's been like maybe more than 6 months now. I had this screensaver and it basically just says, it's time. And for me, that was a constant reminder because I was like, okay, I have all these dreams and goals. I have these things I want to do. And every time I look at my phone, that's a reminder for me, letting me know like right now is your time. Right now is time. So whether that's you being in a phase of foundational preparation and you just doing the research so you can get to that end goal, or whether it's your season right now, it's your glow up season where you are glowing up and you are doing the work internally to become the person that you've always wanted to become, like it's time. The time is now. So whatever those dreams and goals that you have, I think, why not do it now? Life is precious. Why not take that leap, right? Whatever it might be for you, whether it's writing that book, starting that business, starting that podcast, or going back to school. I mean, whatever it is, life is always going to present us with something that can take our attention away from it. But I think that we need to realize that we deserve to live our wildest dreams. So I think that the words for me would be, it's time.
I love that. It is time, and we've got nothing but time because things have definitely slowed down for all of us. So we might as well take advantage of the time that we've been given. I love that. It's time.
It's time.
My next question for you, as we're wrapping, what's in the works for you for 2020, or what's next for you? We know you've got your book being released on the 21st, right?
Yeah, so the book was released on the 21st, and to learn more about the book and to get exclusive content, you can visit glowupbook.com for that. You know what? I think we're just going to continue to grind out with the podcast. I mean, believe it or not, so I wrote this book last year and I finished around April. And so I've already been thinking of ideas for a second book. So I'm trying to like hold myself and just say, okay, we're going to focus on the first book first, get it out and, share it with the world. And then I'm already, crafting ideas on that. So I think there's definitely going to be another book coming for sure. And I would just say, yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Just kind of staying committed to the path of podcasting and writing this second book once it's time, and just continuing to do my best to be a light in the world and heal myself and work on me so that I can be a better me for myself and those around me.
Yes, love that, love that, love that. And other thing to add for our listeners, Terri has been so gracious to us. And for those who are interested in launching your first podcast, she has a whole master class that she's offering, and she's giving our listeners a special access to her class for just the low $5, y'all. So we'll actually include that in the show notes, and we'll talk more. We'll include all of Terri's information. Terri, if you could just tell her how our listeners can connect with you.
Yes, so you can connect with me on basically all social media channels at Terri Lomax. That's TerriLomax. Instagram is lit for me. I love to be on Instagram, so that's where I post the most. I like to post stories and just random stuff there. So Instagram is definitely the place. You can also visit terrilomax.com to learn more about my branding and social media coaching and things of that nature. I also have some online courses there at terrilomax.com. And yes, you can, of course, check my co-host and I, Dr. Dom, out on the Her Space podcast.
All right, y'all. Y'all know where to get connected. We will, like Yana said, we'll make sure we put all that in our show notes so you know how to connect with Terri Lomax. Man, this has been an amazing conversation, a wonderful conversation. Like Yana said earlier, we can go all day long, but we know we want to respect your time. Terri is a busy woman, and so we want to make sure that we are being respectful of her time. But man, this has been great. I don't know. It was an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today. And yeah. Woo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for opening your space with us. And we just can't wait to hear more and how this journey continue to take you, where it continue to take you. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. This was so much fun, and it's such a pleasure and honor. And I really appreciate all your feedback and you just allowing me to be in your space as well.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Well, y'all, we are out of time, but you can always connect with us on social as well. Rewind this episode and listen to it again. No, but you can catch us online at Melanated Conversations. If you have a story that you want to share, let us know. Shoot us an email at info@melanatedconversations.com. We would love to share you. Our mission is always to share our stories of transformation, share in our lessons, and celebrate our successes. And we have successfully done that today. So until next time,
melanate on that.
Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our chat today. Keep the conversation going by heading to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leaving us a review.
Have a story of your own to share? Email us at info@melanatedconversations.com or connect with us on social media at Melanated Conversations. Till next time, keep raising your voice.